Hello, everyone. Back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde. I am joined alongside a very special guest today, Rashad from DaWindyCity Productions. We're going to go over what we saw in day 5 of training camp. Excited to have you guys on. Before we begin this video, please hit the like button. Put your thoughts of training camp so far in the comments. And if you haven't already, if you please could, hit that subscribe button. Rashad, welcome back to the show, man. Nice to see you.
Of course, man. Glad to be on. We went to training camp together on Saturday, and it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you giving me tickets, by the way. He was the reason why I was at camp on Saturday, but definitely had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we were the second. So I was the second bus. Rashad was the third bus. Like, we got off, and he's walking in front of me, and I'm like, Rashad? And he turns around. I'm like, what timing? So it was a lot of fun. We saw great plays, great Justin Fields stuff. We had the chance to be right in front of the basket tosses that you guys saw. So we'll be posting highlights throughout camp. You guys don't want to miss it. But Rashad, because you've been to a couple camps, we've seen a ton of highlights. I mean, a Bears Twitter has been blowing up. I know that you've been busy on it. I've been busy on it. But out of everything that you're seeing, a lot of people are focusing on rookies. You know, we had the guy today that had 2 interceptions against Justin Fields and PJ Walker. You know, you have Cruikshank. You have a couple other guys like D'Anthony, Jones. Like, these guys are really starting to rip it up. Who is your guy that you're rooting for the most to sneak onto the 53-man roster that a lot of people aren't thinking about right now?
Yeah, I kind of want to say Cruikshank now. I mean, to be honest, didn't know about this guy at all before camp started. Like, he was just a late riser kind of. I mean, not late riser. Camp just started right now, but like, I didn't really know about him beforehand. But once he made that one-handed catch, I was like, oh my God, like, this guy might have something. And that was only one catch, right? But after that, he made a few more plays and, in the other practices. And, as receiver number 5 or number 6, like, he can maybe have that ceiling that other receivers we have right now don't have. Like EQ St. Brown, like Dante Pettis, like these guys, like we already know what they are in the NFL, but a guy like Cruikshank, who coming out of college, like, a lot of people didn't know about him that much. I still have to research more into him, but he has that speed, that playmaking ability. Even in practice on Saturday, I saw him practicing like one-handed catches after practice, to make those acrobatic grabs. So that would be pretty cool if he finds a way to make this roster after, a lot of people weren't really talking about him. But, aside from him, I can't really think of too many other UDFAs, because I feel like last year it was more easy for them to make the roster because of how bad of a roster we actually had. But this year we actually have talent at like every position. We have depth at most positions. So it's going to be harder for the UDFAs to make any sort of impact in year one.
And I agree with Cruikshank, because we were watching it, but when the second offense was running a lot of different plays, I don't think either of us got a video of it, but he can turn it on like that. And when he does, he's lightning bolt fast. He was able to split through defenders, make corners, fall on their feet. And also, he had a really nice play on a pitch where he took it all the way to the outside and scored. And it was pretty impressive. So I'm definitely rooting for him. I really like just overall, a lot of the guys that Ryan Poles brings in. A couple of offensive linemen are definitely starting to make a little bit of noise, probably good depth guys, because, besides Lucas Patrick and, Carter, who is really like, Larry Borum too, I guess, but there's not a lot of, our offensive line needs a ton of depth, because last year was a total disaster. So, I'm hoping that at least 1 or 2 guys from the offensive line sneak onto the 53-man roster. But like you said, there is a ton of talent on this team. And Cruikshank's probably my number 1 too, because the one-handed catch was just so sick. And I think that the Bears need an athletic receiver like that. So I'm with you, man. I think that'd be great. And the guy making him look good with these one-handed catches is Justin Fields, which he looks absolutely fantastic so far. We got to see his accuracy and confidence up close. He looks like an entirely different type of player, much more NFL ready when going into camp. And he's now getting even smarter. Like today on July 31st, he had a ton of checkdowns when needed today, when guys were open. And the offensive line and receivers were doing their jobs, but they're not going to win every single play. The defense is going to go down on them. And he showed that a lot today with the checkdowns and wearing pads. He was the only guy out there wearing pads today. So out of all his improvements that, kind of just went through what you've seen so far, what is your favorite and what excites you the most entering 2023?
Yeah, I'd say the quicker decision making. I mean, based on what we've seen so far, based on reports as well, it does seem like he's hitting the checkdowns more often, like you kind of alluded to, and that's a big thing, right? Because in the NFL, you can't just always hit the 40-yard bomb down the field or the 50-yard bomb or any type of big play. Like you have to be able to hit the checkdowns every once in a while. Like that's why, for example, a quarterback like Kirk Cousins is still in the NFL. Like even though he's not the most, athletic or he's not going to make big plays for you down the field, he's able to hit those, intermediate to short routes, which can keep a drive moving. And that's the main thing that Justin Fields had to work on going into this year, because otherwise, he probably would not be the Bears quarterback after this year if he's just playing the same as he did earlier on. So we've been seeing a lot of checkdowns. We've been seeing a lot of short passing concepts work so far, which I don't think we saw that much of last year. And the big thing also is that we have a lot of guys now that can actually take these short passes, a lot longer than the passes, right? Like we have Velus Jones, who's good after the catch. We have DJ Moore now, who's fantastic after the catch. A guy like Chase Claypool, also has the speed, the athletic frame to break a tackle, make something happen afterwards. So I think that's the biggest thing, man. Being confident, making quicker decisions, and being able to be the franchise quarterback that can pass multiple times a game. It doesn't have to only like run with the football or only complete a big play down the field. So I'll definitely say the quicker decision making.
I agree. I mean, like we absolutely needed that. There was a ton of. I mean, he was pretty quick with decisions last year because he knew his offensive line was going to fall apart. So that's why he ran it a ton. Like that was the only decision he could make. But it's good to see that instead of potentially interceptions and you're like putting your hands on your head, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? I'm just happy that those days are looking like they're coming to an end. And, another thing too is building the relationship with his wide receivers. Year one, he was a rookie, maybe a little bit of, it's the rookie quarterback. What's he doing? I started with Andy. Guys are weird like that in the NFL sometimes. Like whoever they start with is whoever they want to finish with. In Fields, it looks like he's getting more open to not just sticking with one guy, because the guys he was with at camp last year, Pringle, Pettis, all those guys, that's who he stuck with. Like he didn't go anywhere else. That's why they were his favorite receivers. He is tossing it well to everyone right now. And one guy that I really want to call out, and I know that you're a fan of, is Tyler Scott. They've had a ton of highlights so far at camp. Tyler Scott also is a super humble guy. I don't know if you listen to Dave and BFR's podcast with Tyler Scott, but most humble guy ever. Pat the designer just did something with him today with Jason McKee. Tyler Scott not only is a humble guy off the field, but on the field because he's just so smooth with everything. And that's my big crush right now in the wide receiver room in regards to the relationship building with Fields. DJ Moore is a given. But out of all the wide receivers, who do you think Justin Fields for the long term is besides, let's take DJ Moore out of the equation. I think that one's a lock anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But out of all the wide receivers, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Tyler Scott, who do you think is going to have the best and up and coming relationship with Fields that's going to be great long term for both parties?
I got to say Mooney, man. I mean, I know you said up and coming relationship and they already have a relationship, but I think that's going to continue to grow this year because I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on what Mooney can bring to the table, right? I mean, last year he got injured the second half of the season. The entire passing offense absolutely sucks. So we didn't see Mooney have anywhere close to his 2021 numbers, but we saw him already go off for, over 1,000 yards as being the number 2 option, back when we had Allen Robinson, and they already have a good, chemistry connection going. Like Mooney always, has been a reliable target for Justin Fields. They've been working together a lot in the offseason. They're best friends, basically. I mean, now DJ Moore is kind of more, I feel like more of a best friend to Fields, but they're still good friends too. So don't forget about Darnell Mooney. I mean, he has the ability to stretch the field. He gets open, which Fields loves, makes that acrobatic, spectacular catch too when need be. And they already have a connection going too. So I think that, he is going to be extended. I think, out of him or Claypool, I think that Mooney probably is more likely to be extended because he already has that connection with Justin Fields. But, we'll see what happens next year. I'm really rooting for Darnell Mooney to come back from that injury and perform well.
Do you think that Poles is holding off right now from signing an edge because he's trying to work out a contract with Mooney, maybe?
Well, I feel like that wouldn't prevent you from signing an edge because we have so much money, right? And most of that money would be going into next year. So I think the main thing is he probably wants to see him fully back healthy because right now he is still kind of, at least according to my knowledge, like limited somewhat. Like he's not fully in the 11-11s as much as, a Claypool or Moore is. So I think when he's fully back, running healthy, maybe when the season starts after like a few weeks, maybe then we see Mooney being extended by the Bears.
I hope so. I mean, like, I think that he's been in here through Mitch, through Dalton, and now through Fields, and he's performed it with 3 different quarterbacks, showing that no matter who you are having throw to him, he's going to perform well. So I agree with you. I would re-sign Darnell Mooney over Chase Claypool at the moment. But Chase Claypool, let's talk about him real quick. He's on the redemption tour right now, and he looked good today. There was a lot of highlights of him, going full speed. He had some nice plays when we were there on Saturday. But you can tell he's getting ramped up, and pads are apparently coming on August 1st, which is tomorrow after this show is recorded. Mm-hmm. But, the coaches have ramped up Claypool. He's definitely going a lot faster. He got a lot more attention from Fields, overall. And that's what fans want to see, quiet the haters a little bit, like, okay, this guy could be something. Right now, what you're seeing from Claypool, what is 2023 looking like for him? Do you think he's going to be, a 700-yard type guy? Is he going to be just a red zone kind of target? What are you thinking for Chase Claypool in 2023 with Justin Fields as his quarterback?
I think he'll be good. Like, I don't think it's going to be going above 1,000 yards because we just have too many mouths to feed now on the offense. And, I still think, though, he could be like a 600, 700-yard guy, like, kind of like you mentioned, which as the number 3 option, that would be fantastic because last year, I don't think a single receiver that we had went over 600 yards, right? So I don't anticipate him being the number 1 option, obviously, on this offense because that's going to be DJ Moore. Number 2 guy, obviously, probably is going to be Darnell Mooney, too, because they already have that connection. And Justin Fields is a type of quarterback where he likes to throw to guys that are separating, that are open. He necessarily doesn't like give chances to guys that are like in contested catch situations, which he does have to improve on. But if, Fields does start giving those contested catch opportunities to Chase Claypool, there could be a chance he could go off for 800 yards, maybe even more. So I'm optimistic about Chase Claypool going forward. I'm not, thinking of him as like a long-term piece as it, at this point in time with the Chicago Bears, because right now I haven't seen enough of him to, want to extend him long-term, but I could easily be proven wrong, if he has a good season this year and if he gets that connection going with Justin Fields. And like you mentioned, like he had a good camp practice today. He's been looking pretty decently, recently. So I think, training camp and preseason is going to be huge for him to get that confidence, that chemistry going with Fields. And if he can, watch out, that could be a really solid receiving option for Justin Fields in the offense.
Could you imagine if all of so Mooney, Moore, Claypool, and Scott all had like above 850 yards each? I mean,
that'd be wild.
That's a pipe dream right there. But you never know. It could happen because Justin Fields is going to air it out. I think Moore is a lock at 1,000+ yards. He's proven that year in, year out. I think Mooney's going to get back to it. He's going to play really hard. Komet, I have at probably like 500 yards tops, but I have him with 11 touchdowns. I think he's going to be a huge red zone target. Now that the Bears invested in him and he knows what's going to happen, like you don't just give that money to a hometown kid. Like, hey, thanks for being a Bears fan for all the terrible years, and now you play for us. Here's $50 million for our sorries. Like, no, they're going to involve him. Obviously, he's part of the plan. And I don't know, Claypool, man, he's just an athletic freak. And they interviewed Tyler Scott today on ESPN 1000. They said, who's the most like unrealistic human being in the locker room? And he said Chase Claypool. Didn't even like hesitate to say it because he is a freak of nature. And I'm excited for him. I was excited when we traded for him. I thought, okay, we're going in the right direction. And I had low expectations for him last year because it's hard for a guy to join halfway through a season, no chemistry with literally anybody on the team. So I'm excited for Claypool this upcoming season. Is he going to be a Pro Bowler? Would love it for him. Likely, probably not. So we'll see where it goes. One guy, though, that we had a pretty good eye on Saturday, and we want to see go in the right direction is Khalil Herbert. From an explosiveness, from a ability standpoint, he looks like a running back 1. But you and I got front row seats to him getting absolutely blown up every single time in the pass blocking drill. And that's a big concern. And sure, they're not wearing pads, so maybe he's just kind of like being light about it. But in front of, thousands of fans, probably wasn't his, best move. Do you think because there was no pads, Herbert has struggled? I mean, he kind of has a bad resume of it as is. But if you're a coach who came out in the middle of the offseason and said, I need a blocking running back, how are you looking at this situation? Are you going to, have Herbert start the game and, then immediately put Rashawn Johnson or Foreman in? Or, kind of how would you handle this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be by committee, you would think. Like, there's going to be situations where Herbert is going to be in because he's also like, he was too efficient last year to just not give him any carries this year. Like, he was, I think, leading the NFL in yards per carry, right? So you can't just completely like phase him out of the offense. But at the same time, on passing downs, like, you don't want him out there because I don't think he's good at pass blocking. And to answer your question, I don't think it's only because there weren't pads on, because Roshan Johnson looked pretty good without the pads on
Yeah,
still.
he was beating
He was
people
doing
up.
really good. Yeah, multiple like back-to-back good snaps, good reps pass blocking. So I just think that Herbert, he also doesn't have the size to necessarily be a good pass protector. I don't size is the only thing that matters, but he's a small guy. Like he's 5'9", I think. Doesn't
Yeah.
weigh that much either. So at some point, like I know he tried boxing in the offseason, but I don't think it made that much of a difference. So I do anticipate like maybe after like week 7, week 8, like I'm thinking Roshan Johnson is going to be RB1 down the stretch of this year because he has an all around type of back ability that Foreman or Herbert don't. And the big thing with Roshan also is going to be, can he catch the ball out of the backfield, right? Because if he
Right.
can actually catch the ball, then that's another area that puts him above Herbert and Foreman because both of them don't have, too much experience catching the football. Herbert wasn't the best last year at catching the football. I know that Roshan also had a few drops though in camp on Saturday, so he actually was working on the jugs machines after practice. So he's gonna have to improve there in terms of consistency. But I do think Roshan is gonna be RB1 down the stretch, and they've been so high on Roshan too. Like Ryan Poles, the scouts have talked about how he's been their favorite human they've ever scouted, and like on the football field too, like behind Bijan. If he didn't play behind Bijan, he could
Yes.
have been going in the second or third round. I mean, he had the explosive ability, that production in college. So we'll see what happens. But I'm riding on the Roshan Johnson RB1 train right now.
We talked about that for a while. I mean, like, again, if Robinson was not in front of him at Texas, this guy would have been. I mean, like, he reminds me so much of Matt Forte. Matt Forte went in the second round out of Tulane. Just the way he's built, the swagger, the mannerism on the field, the respect for the coaches. He's an old style blue collar type football player from like the late 90s. Got drafted like early 2000s type running back, like the Ricky Williams without all the off field issues kind of deal. Like the dude just knows how to play. Ironically, Ricky Williams also went to Texas. So I think that Rashawn Johnson, I'm with you. I think he is going to be RB1 eventually. When that is, I don't know. But I mean, it also depends on the matchup. Like nothing against Khalil Herbert. I think Khalil Herbert's a fantastic running back. I think that he does what he's supposed to do. He does his job, like you said, though, by committee. Like if there's a fullback in and he doesn't have to worry about blocking, Khalil Herbert's your guy. But if Rashawn Johnson's back there by himself, he can handle, a 290-pound defensive lineman running at him full speed because that's just who he is. So I'm excited about that. Let's go into a quick subject, though, that we didn't get the chance to discuss today, but I know how you feel about it in regards to blocking. Is Darnell Wright looked fantastic today. He was pancaking guys without pads on. This guy's going to be an absolute monster. He looks slim. He still looks big, but just overall, your emotions, your feelings, and thoughts are Darnell Wright in this moment.
I'm excited, man. I mean, I wanted this guy before the draft started, like months in advance, and I think I was one of the only people. Maybe not one of the only. There was a lot of people that were
You
happy
and
about the
me.
pick, but
You,
yeah,
you
there
and
was a lot of people that were super mad about the pick too, right? Because we passed on Jalen Carter. People were like, "Oh, why'd you trade Jalen Carter for 4th-round pick?" We got a 4th-round pick for free to select the guy we would have selected at pick number 9. So I was super happy about that. And Darnell Wright has the type of physicality, mentality too on the offensive line that you want if you are Ryan Poles, right? Like I view him kind of like a Tevin Jenkins type of player. Like he has a nastiness to his game. He wants to pancake people, but just working on the right side at right tackle. And he has one of the highest, floors and ceilings, in my opinion, at the tackle spot in this class, because going up against guys like, Will Anderson Jr., BJ Ojulari, like a really good competition in college football, he performed really well against those players. So I'm really excited about Darnell Wright. I think he's going to be having a pretty good rookie season. And also, there could be some bumps at the beginning because it's always hard for rookie tackles to adjust to the NFL. But I think he could be, a top maybe top 10 tackle by the end of next year's. That's my guess.
And I was looking it up in the background while you're bringing it up because you made a really good point. We got a free 4th round pick out of it. And guess who that pick was? Just take a guess.
Who?
Rashawn Johnson. That was our pick.
Wait, was it? I thought it was for the following year, like the pick that we got. I'm
Was
pretty
it a
sure
2025? Because we only had 1/4 this year, and that was Rashawn Johnson. So was it a 2025? You could be very right. So
I mean,
my
I could be wrong
apologies
too,
there.
but I'm pretty sure we traded back from like the first 4th round pick to get an extra 4th round pick or something like that. Oh no, didn't we get the 4th round pick from Robert Quinn, right?
The Eagles sent
Yeah.
a 10th overall pick in a 2024 4th. You are correct. So
Yeah.
my mistake there.
You're
But
good.
who knows who that when we come back next
Yeah.
year, we're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's the guy, and then we're gonna be super pumped about him anyway because Ryan Poles is the king at absolutely drafting. So my mistake. I thought it was a 2023, but didn't we had a pick from the Eagles this past year anyway? I think that's where I'm thinking of because in the Robert Quinn trade, like you were saying. So I'm not sure who that was exactly off the top of my head. Put it in the comment section if you remember who. I'm probably going to look it up after the video and be like, I'm an idiot. So that's my mistake. But yes, I'm excited about Darnell Wright too. He looked absolutely fantastic. I'm excited about Braxton Jones too. I think that's someone that a lot of people are overlooking right now. He looks really good in camp. Success by silence. That's what a lot of these guys are doing. I think that's a huge thing for the offensive line. So want to ask you one more question tonight, Rashad, before everything closes out, is if you can go back to camp from everything that you've seen so far on Twitter, what you've seen so far on Instagram, give me a highlight or two of what your favorites are and why they excite you.
Yeah, so there's a play, I think it was a few days ago, where it was a throw from Fields to Komet in the right or left corner of the end zone, I think. He was pushing the ball out into the corner, and Komet came down with the catch. And I was going to say that just because it was a beautiful throw by Justin Fields, right in the perfect spot for Komet. And Komet came down with that fantastic catch. And I think it was going up against Jaquan Brisker there. So, pretty good safety is going up against, a pretty good catch made. And you love to see that connection, right? Because with all the money we paid Komet, we're going to want to see him be involved in this, in this offense in the red zone. So hopefully he has, another, how many touchdowns did he have last year? Like 7 touchdowns, 8. Yeah. So hopefully he has like 10 touchdowns this year. So I'd say that for my number 1. And then number 2, I'd go with, so Jalen Johnson, I think going up against, so DJ Moore going up against Jalen Johnson. This was 2 days ago, I think I want to say, but he, made a pretty fantastic catch going down the field over Jalen Johnson. And I thought that was cool as well because we haven't had receivers that could make catches like that in the past, like 2 or 3, training camps. So I would probably go with those plays.
I mean, the Komet one was when we were there. That I know for a fact because that was, but the DJ Moore, Jalen Johnson one, I think that was the first practice outside. Or was it the indoor catch? Because there was 2.
There's been so many, right?
There's been so many.
Yeah, I think the one I'm talking about was actually the one where we went as well. I think so I think Clay Harbor posted that one. So if you wanna look it up later, it's
okay. Yeah, see, that's what I mean is that there's so many of and by the way, it's not a knock on like the secondary at all. Again, everyone's gonna make plays, but like it's nice that there's a perfect balance right now between the offense and the defense. No one's dominated. A lot of people say the defense dominated today, but they also turned it up a notch. So I give them the benefit of the doubt. I think the offense in pads is going to really show us what this offense can do. And right now they look great. And, the energy is high. The vibes are high. So I'm excited about it. So, Rashad, before we close out, can't thank you enough for coming on again. I know we have a ton of stuff coming up in the future that we're going to let you guys know about, and we'll be posting on our pages. But out of all the coaches right now for the Chicago Bears, who do you think is on the hottest seat to have success this upcoming season?
Got to be Alan Williams. I mean, he had the worst defense in the NFL last year, and he's the one calling plays too. So it's not like you can only blame like Eberflus for that. Like if the defense again finishes, 32nd, 31st, 30th in the NFL, I think that he would be probably fired after this year because even though I know we don't have great defensive line talent, like I think we have enough now to at least have like the 25th ranked defense or 23rd, or I'm sure most Bear fans are hoping for even higher. But like my bare minimum expectation is like being ranked like 24th or 25th, which would still be a big jump for being ranked 32nd last year. You know, I think it's the offense is going to be carrying this team a lot more than the defense right now, but it should be improved to the level where it's not the worst in the NFL. So I'd go with Allen Williams. How about you?
I'm going to go Chris Morgan. I think that, this offensive line, Nate Davis comes in, Cody Whitehair is back at his Pro Bowl spot. You move Tevin Jenkins. You have a rookie right tackle you have to develop, and Braxton Jones as well at left tackle. Hot seat over there. And, these guys have immense respect for him. So I think that they are going to do successful this year, and they love Justin Fields. So overall, but that's what I mean is that if they have this during camp, and I know it's camp, but you have to get that into the games because you were also one of the worst offensive lines in football, at least for the first half last year. I know they proved significantly in the second half, but he's got to make sure this offensive line is top 12. So 12 at least in my book, especially with all the money we put into that offensive line. So
I got a question for you. Do you think that Eberflus would be on the hot seat if we don't win more than like 5 or 6 games? Like if we go like 5 and whatever, like do you think Eberflus would be on the hot seat too or no?
100%. And I'll give you 3 reasons why. So, and I want to hear your reasons after too. 1, you have the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL. You have Green Bay, and this is like 1A. So you have Green Bay, who is in a rebuild. Packers fans are in such denial about it. It's insane. They're in a rebuild. The Vikings, where did they get better? In Detroit, they didn't take leaps to get better. In fact, I think they got worse in some ways and better in others, so they stayed balanced. So the NFC North is wide open. That's point number 1. You have now Luke Getsy giving his full playbook to a young quarterback who can do it on his own with his feet. And now Ryan Poles went out and gave you an entirely new offense, and you're putting it all into Luke Getsy. That's a decision as a head coach that you need to make. That's point number 2. And number 3, you're apparently a defensive mastermind. Going off of your point, Allen Williams is calling the plays, but Flus as the leader and as the coach needs to be in Allen Williams' ear, having a proper game plan with him. That doesn't happen. If the Bears, in my opinion, are any less than 18, I think Eberflus should be fired. And, I don't want that to happen because he brings great culture. He brings great personality. People want to play for him, but his seat's going to get real hot if he goes, 3-5 in the first 8 games. And there's a ton of high expectations. You had the biggest offseason in the NFL. Look what the Jaguars did. They went worse the first, or they at least made the playoffs. So a lot to consider there. But, I know you asked me, what are your reasons? Because you said, do you agree? Or sorry, did you say you agree? Sorry, I agree.
I agree with you.
You agree. So what are your reasonings why?
Honestly, the same as yours, right? Like in the NFL, it stands for not for long for a reason, right? Like if you're not winning games, you're not going to be in the NFL for much longer. And, so far we haven't seen much of, I don't want to say we haven't seen good coaching because we actually have, right? There's been many areas last year in which the Bears did improve down the stretch. Penalties, we were the 3rd least penalized team. There was a lot of areas where we did get better throughout the season, but now we have to translate that into actual wins because it's a winning league. If you don't win, you're not gonna be in the NFL. So I totally agree. This team is good enough. I feel like we're at least 7, 8, 9 wins. That should be the goal right now for this team, which I know fans across the league would call us delusional for that because we were the worst team in the NFL last year. But you see teams go from worst to first so often in the NFL. If you do have the right quarterback, which I think we have, if you do have the right coach, which I think we have as well. So there should be no excuse for the Bears to not at least go like 500, I hope, and beat the Green Bay Packers too. Beating the Packers week 1 is going to be a must for the Bears because if we lose to Jordan Love, I won't show my face on Twitter for like the entire week. I'll have to deactivate my account if we actually lose to Jordan Love, out of all people. So that first game is going to be pretty important for setting the tone for the rest of the season.
I don't know if you saw, but right before this episode, I tweeted out, like this tweet if Justin Fields is your quarterback 1, ignore if Jordan Love is your quarterback 1. And it's gotten 57,000 views and 325 likes. I'm like, am I hitting the Packers algorithm right now? Because
God,
I will 1,000%. If the Green, I'll say this right now. I know that in our fantasy league, which by the way, we're going to have a Chicago podcast content creator kind of little fantasy league. So we're going to have a live stream for that later in August. Stay tuned for that. But I think the punishment should be for all of us is that if Jordan Love wins week 1, dominates, let's put a little asterisk on it. He dominates the Green Bay, throws like 4 touchdowns or whatever week 1. We all have to go radio silent on Twitter for 2 days. I think like no tweets or anything, just like, what do we do? Someone give a wellness check for us kind of deal. I'm with you, man. If we don't beat the Green Bay Packers week 1 at home, it's not a good look. But could you imagine, just a daydream I had when we were leaving, Hallis Hall is, could you imagine week 1 at home, opening kickoff, Velus Jones Jr. takes it to the house, to really put the tone on, like, the Bears are back, baby.
I could see it happening. Like, we didn't talk about Velus Jones in this episode, but I think he's going to have a bounce back year, man. I mean, his only big problem was fumbling. And it seems like so far, I know you can't tell till the games actually start, but so far in practice, he hasn't fumbled that much. He's been working a lot in the offseason. So if he fixes that fumbling issue, I mean, watch out, because he was actually ranked, I believe, 3rd in the NFL in kickoff return yards per kickoff. So he's damn good at returning the ball. He just has to hang on to it. And we could see that happen, man. I mean, I would be going crazy if he actually does that in the first game of the season, especially on like the first play or something. I mean, could you imagine Soldier Field then? It'd just be nuts.
It'd be like, we would need a Richter scale in Illinois. Like, we don't need to use that very often, but like the ground would be shaking because everyone would be screaming the Bears are back. And save that. We should save that clip right there, because if it happens, that's a big. I think the Bears should be calling us like, all right, how'd you know that was going to happen? And no, we're not saying the NFL is scripted. I'm just saying, like, what else can Juju can we put out there? Bears win the Super Bowl, kind of deal. But I'm excited for this season. I know you and I have a ton of stuff coming up, so I am very excited about that. We'll have all that information on our Twitters. Rashab's Twitter is in the description, so make sure that you go and follow him, DaWindyCity Productions. Awesome account, great stuff. You don't want to miss it. Make sure notifications are on. But Rashab, second episode we've ever done together. Excited we were to get it going, and I'm sure we're gonna have a ton more coming up here. I know we have at least 3 more planned right now in the next 2 months. So you'll see a ton of us. But thanks for coming on, man. Happy to see you at camp again, and can't wait for next time.
You as well, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to have you on my channel too sometime this season.
I hope so, man. I wanna come on your channel. I feel like we would, that, because your episodes, my episodes are usually short. This is long for this channel. But I feel like we could do like a very good mashup kind of deal, like rapid fire stuff, because you're so good at editing. Would love to come on your show, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll plan it for sure.
Absolutely. And with that, guys, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joining along with Rashab from DaWindyCity Productions, and we will see you guys next time.